I wanted to open by congratulating the organisers on the timeliness of this meeting, but you already did that, Malcolm, in your introduction. But I mean, joking apart, I think it is actually a very good time to be just after the Digital European Council. From a DG MARKT perspective, 2 years on from when we did our paper on trust and confidence in the single market. It's a very good opportunity to take stock. I think it's also a good time to start looking forward in terms of what may come in the next few years. You talked about the European Council conclusions, Malcolm, which I did get out and read quite carefully before I came along. So I'm well prepared here because I have 2 phrases from the Council conclusions which will save you all from going to read them, because it's a very succinct summary of what the Council said. I think that this European Council was worthy of note because it was the first one for a long time that has actually had a proper theme related to the European economy. Maybe this shows that we're moving from a time of crisis. The European Council over the last 4 years, constant meetings about the euro, how do we save it, and so on. This was, I think, one of the first councils in a long time where we really had this thematic focus. And the main message was Europe's not making the most of the digital economy because there's market fragmentation. But the 2 phrases, which I thought summarise it all, was that the Council said there was an urgent need for an integrated single digital and telecoms market benefiting companies and consumers. And it also said, as part of its growth strategy, Europe must boost digital, data-driven innovation across all sectors of the economy. Now, of course, as the saying goes, the devil will be in the detail on these things, but I think that's a pretty... those 2 phrases summarise what the Council was saying and the thrust of the conclusions. And obviously, a very important part of that is a more dynamic and integrated telecoms market, which will let all the players in the digital ecosystem grow, innovate and invest, and thereby contribute to growth and jobs. And the Commission, just before the Council, made a very ambitious proposal, which was prepared by Commissioner Kroes and her services, some of whom I think are here in the room as well, so we can, I guess, cover that in the debate. And I understand, Malcolm and Pilar, that proposal is now in your very capable hands. And of course, like the Council, we do look forward to completing the discussions on that before the European elections. But of course, there are lots of other pieces of legislation also that need to be completed by then. But we're very pleased to know that it's in your hands. I wanted to briefly talk around 3 points. The first is what we are doing with our trust and confidence paper, otherwise known as the e-commerce communication from January 2012. There we set ourselves a work programme that will go from 2012 to 2015. About 75% of what we said there has now been delivered on, but quite a few of those things that were in there were preliminary steps. So, for example, we had a gambling action plan, talked about the consumer agenda, we had the cloud computing strategy, and of course we had some important proposals which hopefully might even be completed by the end of this presidency, like the e-identification and trust services, which sounds very technical, but it's very important in terms of online services. But we've now moved into a second phase, which is, let's say, a bit more operational, and there are 2 things in DG MARKT that we are focusing on. One of them you mentioned, Malcolm, which is parcels. I'll come back to that in a minute, but before I do, a word, I think, about the payments package, which was adopted in July 2013, which is in the priority list for the Commission, again, for an agreement before the end of the mandate. But I think this is a crucially important piece of legislation. Unfortunately, I think the committee that deals with it in the Parliament is very, very busy with other things, but I think it will be really important to go as far as possible on that package, and I see Christian nodding there, and I have to, I think, again, pay tribute to the retail industry, who were very, very instrumental in that proposal getting out and seeing the light of day. On parcels, I blithely announced at a meeting that Penny had this morning that Santa Claus would be bringing something for everybody on parcels. And you mentioned the green paper. We hope that before Christmas there will also be a roadmap. Not necessarily what everybody wants to find in their Christmas parcels, but we do hope that the roadmap which will bring together the work that's already been done by industry and focus on some key things that we need to do and deliver on over the next 18 months or so. Will be out there and we can start discussing it with all the players. The purpose of the roadmap is threefold. First of all, to improve information and transparency along the e-commerce value chain, so that everyone can see much better what's going on. To promote better interoperability of parcel delivery operations, get all the systems that are out there, the logistics systems, working better, so that we can in particular improve when parcels have to cross borders. And third, and last but by no means least, we want to enhance consumer protection. We have the Consumer Rights Directive, which has made some very important progress in that respect, but we know that complaint handling, redress, practical things like track and trace are still very important for consumers, so that's also at the heart of the roadmap. The Commission decided for now, given the response to the Green Paper, that we didn't need to legislate, but that we could work with industry, which has already started moving on this. So, as I mentioned, we will work together over the next 18 months, keeping a very careful eye about how quickly we move and whether we really improve things on the ground. And the Commission might need to do something else if we don't get progress, but we're hopeful that we should. Second thing I want to talk about is what else is on the agenda now for the months to come and in 2014, apart from telecoms, which I've already mentioned. Of course, we have the review of copyright policy, which is now due for the spring. We are working also on a brochure, some guidelines about what we call Article 20 of the Services Directive, which is about non-discrimination on grounds of residence or nationality of consumers. We should have a document which gives lots of practical examples, helps the consumers network to actually interpret this in practice. Of course, VAT, everybody comes back to VAT when we talk about digital and some of the key barriers, and there should be some decision on the future of the VAT that's applied to digital content. Data protection, of course, is another of these proposals that's pending, where we very much hope that by 2015 we will have an agreement. And last but by no means least, again, a practical thing from the Commission, we're working on an online guide for SMEs, which would help them. They regularly come to us and say, what should we do when we want to go online, what are the regulatory requirements, etc. So here will be very much a hands-on guide for SMEs who want to go online and sell cross-border, and who can be part of this digital revolution that is taking place in the retail sector. So last, I wanted to just mention a few emerging issues and things that I think we're going to be discussing in the months and probably years to come. Of course, moving to M-payments and M-commerce is going to be crucially important. Obviously, we need to, first of all, lay the ground with the package that's before the Council and the Parliament, but other parts in the world are moving extremely quickly on this. I'm afraid that in terms of standards, technical standards and so on, we're not really stepping up to the plate on that. The question of platforms and access to platforms and so on was one of the things that was further down in a paragraph of the European Council conclusions. I think that's going to be one of the issues that we need to come back to. Selective distribution, again, takes us into the territory of discrimination of consumers on grounds of nationality and so on. And I think there we're also hearing from SMEs that some of the platform bans that are operating are really stopping them from operating in an effective way. Taxation, I guess, will continue to be an issue. As you know, the Commission has just set up an expert group to look into this in all its ramifications. We also need to benefit from and address the challenges of big data. Penny had one quote on that this morning, so I thought I'd better find another one for this evening. Malcolm, Peter Ustinov. Maybe you can explain who Peter Ustinov was, no? He was a rather... oh, maybe the gentleman over there, but anyway. So to those who are not English, this is a very famous English actor, now sadly deceased. I mean, he has, unlike most Brits, he was able, I think, to speak 7 or 8 languages, so he distinguished himself on that ground alone. He also, I believe, had an honorary degree from the Vrije Universiteit here in Brussels. So, but he said once, and I think that there's some truth in this, we used to have a lot of questions to which there were no answers. Now, with the computer, I mean, you can see how long ago it was when he said this, but I think it's still relevant, there are lots of answers to which we haven't thought up the questions. So I leave you with that thought, and obviously big data is going to have a huge impact on us, as are things like 3D printing as well, changing all the processes, the way that things work. We should, of course, focus on what's on the Parliament's table for the moment. We've got to deliver on those things, but I think it's also, we need to have a broader look to the future. We need to make sure that our legislation is, and one of the colleagues over there said I had coined this phrase. If I did, I'm glad, but I think it was rather him that said it, which is that our legislation is actually digitally fit for this century, yeah? Which will be another task, I think, for us going forward. So, Mark, I'm sorry, I plead your indulgence. I think I was a little bit longer than 5 minutes, but hopefully we didn't go on for too long.
Thank you.